Welcome everyone to today's deep dive. I'm so glad you're joining us today because we have a really fascinating operational mystery to unpack. But, to set the stage for you, I want you to imagine being an air traffic controller.
Okay, an air traffic controller. I'm with you.
Right, so you're sitting there, you are staring at your radar screen, and you are complaining bitterly into your microphone that the sky is completely empty. You are practically begging for a plane to land.
Right.
Meanwhile, right outside your window, there's this massive 747 on the runway, flashing its landing lights, blaring its horn, and the pilot is actively waving at you. And your response? You just close the blinds because, well, you'd rather keep staring at the empty radar screen. I mean, it sounds completely absurd.
Yeah, it sounds like a fast track to getting fired. I mean, you can't just ignore the most obvious signal right in front of your face while you're complaining about a lack of activity.
Exactly. And yet this exact scenario is playing out every single day in an industry you interact with all the time. But before we get into the mechanics of that, this deep dive is brought to you by DeskReadyLeads.com. If your dealership is tired of leads with no context, no intent, and no real reason to buy, it may be time for a different approach. Visit DeskReadyLeads.com to see how we can help your dealership generate better conversations with buyers who actually have a reason to engage.
You know, that is a very timely message for the breakdown we're looking at today.
It really is. Today, our mission is to explore a massive paradox in the automotive sales industry. We are going to look at why car dealerships, who are constantly begging for high-intent customers, are actively ignoring the absolute most valuable buying signal they ever receive. We're getting into sales psychology, technology failures, and basic human nature. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the foundation of this issue really starts with a massive disconnect between what businesses claim they want and what they actually do when that specific thing is handed to them. Dealerships are constantly complaining about lead quality.
All the time.
Right. They say people are just, browsing their inventory at midnight with no plan, no budget, absolutely no urgency. They argue that internet leads are just people price shopping.
The classic argument, right? Like the leads are weak, or they don't answer the phone, or they just aren't serious.
Exactly. But then a customer takes the time to submit a full credit application. And, think about the gravity of that action.
Yeah.
This person is handing over their full name, their phone number, their email, their physical address, their complete job history, their income, housing details, and on top of all that, giving explicit permission for a business to pull their credit report.
It's a huge deal. It's a massive data dump.
It really is. That is not a casual Facebook like. That is not a shopper accidentally submitting a form because they wanted to see a few more photos of steering wheel. That is a customer raising their hand high in the air and saying, I want to know if I can buy.
Right, because if you've ever applied for a loan online, you don't just hand over your social security number for fun. You do it because you have a problem you desperately want solved.
Yeah, exactly.
Like maybe you need transportation for a new job, or you're trying to lower a payment, or you're stuck in an unreliable car. It's like a diner complaining they have no customers, but when someone walks in, sits down, and hands the waiter their credit card, the waiter ignores them because they'd rather chase people looking at the menu in the window.
That is a great way to put it. What's fascinating here is that the credit application exposes an uncomfortable truth. The dealership does not actually have a lead problem. They have a deep systemic process problem.
A process problem.
Yes. When a business ignores a high-intent signal like a credit application, they aren't just missing a single sale. They are literally training that customer to go somewhere else. And, those customers absolutely do.
I am really trying to wrap my head around the logic here, though. If the credit app is the ultimate buying signal, why on earth are salespeople ignoring it? I mean, if I'm in sales, I want the person who just handed me their financial life. That's a golden ticket.
You'd think so, right? But to understand that, we have to look at the psychology of the modern showroom. It really comes down to the comfort zone.
The comfort zone.
Yeah. A normal internet lead, say, someone just asking, is this car available, is incredibly easy to hide behind. It is the path of least resistance.
Because there's no real emotional weight to it.
Exactly, and it requires very little effort. A salesperson can call that generic lead once, leave a quick voicemail, send a generic text, mark it as attempted in their software, and just move on.
Boom, done.
Right, and if the customer doesn't answer, the salesperson needs to throw their hands up to their manager and say, see, bad lead. It takes 2 minutes and zero emotional energy.
But a credit app strips away that excuse. It creates instant accountability. The customer has essentially done the hardest part of the job for you by providing all the puzzle pieces.
Which means the salesperson actually has to do the work to put the puzzle together.
Right.
Someone has to review the application, someone has to make a decision about submitting it to lenders, they have to talk to the finance department, match the customer to a realistic vehicle based on their actual approval metrics, and then follow up with confidence. It requires taking control of a highly complex simulation.
And from what I understand from the sources, salespeople often avoid these applications because the customer might have a thin credit file.
That's a big part of it.
And for those listening who might not know, a thin credit file just means someone hasn't borrowed enough money in the past to actually generate a solid credit score. They might be a ghost to the banks. Or, maybe the customer has totally unrealistic expectations. We're talking about the customer who wants a $70,000 lifted truck, but they only have $500 to put down and a rocky financial history.
Yeah, that specific scenario is a major hurdle. The salesperson has to navigate that reality check. They have to bring that customer back down to earth without insulting them.
Right.
And that requires a script, it requires tact, and it requires a lot of patience. You cannot just call them up and blurt out, "How much money do you have down?" or "You can't afford that truck."
Wait a minute, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Mm.
Isn't overcoming objections and having tough financial conversations literally sales 101?
Mm.
If you are a professional in sales, your entire job is navigating friction. So why is there such a profound fear of this specific interaction?
Well, consider the extreme vulnerability of the customer in that specific moment. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. They just filled out a form exposing their entire financial reality to a total stranger.
Yeah, that's true.
They might be embarrassed about a past bankruptcy, or maybe they were turned down by another dealer just yesterday. They are sitting there incredibly worried about approval. They hit submit, and they are sitting at their kitchen table thinking, okay, now what? And if the salesperson ignores them or delays calling, that vulnerability instantly turns into a feeling of deep rejection.
If you lay all your cards on the table, you expose your biggest financial insecurities, and the other person just walks away. That stings. It feels deeply personal.
Exactly. And ignored, emotionally invested customers do not just wait around patiently for 3 days. They take that intent straight to a competitor. Maybe they go to CarMax, or they head over to a buy here, pay here lot.
Just to clarify, a buy here, pay here lot is one of those smaller independent dealerships that handle their own financing in-house, right? Usually catering specifically to people with tough credit situations.
That is correct. Those lots specialize in overcoming that exact vulnerability. Speed matters on every lead, obviously, but because of the intense emotional investment attached to a credit application, speed and empathy matter exponentially more.
Okay, so there is clearly a massive human element here, this fear of the hard conversation. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just human nature failing these customers. The internal technology and the departmental structures of the dealership are actively setting the salespeople up for failure.
Yeah, the technology aspect is huge.
Let's talk about the CRM. For anyone outside of sales, a CRM is customer relationship management software. It's the program businesses use to track every email, text, phone call, and customer profile.
And the CRM is where we see a massive structural flaw. In most dealerships, this software completely flattens lead intent.
I am struggling to understand how a multi-million-dollar software system fails to prioritize the best leads. How does it flatten intent?
So picture the dashboard a salesperson looks at on their computer or their phone. To the CRM, a lead is a lead. It treats a generic website form, a chat bubble asking what colors does this come in, and a 10-page, full-blown credit application exactly the same. They all drop into the exact same workflow with the exact same 5-minute follow-up timer. To the salesperson, it's just another generic notification pinging on their screen.
It's like an emergency room triage nurse treating a minor paper cut with the exact same priority, the exact same paperwork, and the exact same workflow as a patient having a massive heart attack.
That is a perfect analogy.
I mean, it is organizational malpractice. A credit application should trigger flashing red lights. It should demand an entirely different first response script, because the customer did not just ask, is this car available? They asked, can I get approved? Those are two fundamentally different conversations.
You hit the nail on the head. And on top of the CRM treating every lead equally, dealerships suffer from severe internal silos.
What do you mean by silos?
Well, credit applications sit right at the messy, complicated intersection of the sales department and the finance department.
Okay, but why can't the salesperson just walk over to the finance office and ask them to look at the application?
Because of how everyone gets paid and what their priorities are.
Of course. Follow the money.
Exactly. The sales department wants a quick, easy lead to get someone in the door. The finance department wants a clean, easily financeable deal that a bank will approve immediately. And the desk managers, well, they just want gross profit, which is the actual money the dealership makes on the sale itself.
And the customer just wants an answer about whether they can actually buy a car.
Right. But because those three departments aren't aligned, the application gets stuck in purgatory. The salesperson doesn't know if they should invite the customer in yet because they don't know if they are approved. Finance doesn't want to spend an hour reviewing it because the customer isn't physically sitting in the showroom.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. Nobody officially owns this complicated lead. And when nobody owns it, it dies.
Which brings us to perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of this entire deep dive. This structural failure exposes a massive gap between the marketing these businesses broadcast to the world and the customers they actually want to serve when the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where dealerships are actively destroying their own public trust. Think about the advertisements you hear on the radio or see on Facebook.
Sure.
Dealerships spend thousands of dollars running campaigns promising all credit approved and low down payments. They intentionally design marketing to attract credit-sensitive buyers.
Right. Let me give you a hypothetical. A dealership spends $10,000 a month on social media ads, explicitly targeting lower-income buyers or people looking for payment relief. The ad works. A customer clicks it, fills out the whole application, and sends it in.
But internally, in the actual showroom, the culture is built entirely around prime deals. Prime deals are those customers with an 800 credit score walking in with their own financing ready to sign.
The easy deals.
The easy deals. So the sales team actively rolls their eyes at the exact same credit-sensitive buyers their marketing department just paid to acquire. They advertise low down payments, but then complain in the break room when a customer actually needs a low down payment option.
It's making a promise you have absolutely no intention of keeping.
It is completely counterproductive. A business should not market to credit-sensitive customers unless it is willing to build an operational process to support them.
Right.
The customer believed the promise in the ad, they submitted their application because of that promise, and when the dealership responds with judgment, confusion, or just radio silence, the store has essentially manufactured its own bad lead experience. The customer wasn't the problem. The total mismatch between the marketing and the showroom reality was the problem.
Wow. We have diagnosed quite a few illnesses here. We've got psychological avoidance by the sales team, technological flattening of intent in the CRM software, and a cultural disconnect between marketing and operations. Let's pivot to solutions. How do businesses actually fix this? How do they transition from chasing window shoppers to actually guiding these high-intent customers through the process?
Well, it starts with the very first phone call. Most salespeople make the entirely wrong first call.
What do they usually say?
They ring the customer up and say, "Hey, I saw you submitted a credit app. What vehicle are you interested in?"
Which, to a salesperson used to selling metal, sounds completely normal. But to the customer, that feels incredibly abrupt and high pressure.
Because it completely skips past the vulnerability we talked about earlier. The customer is worried about their credit score, and the salesperson is demanding they pick out a car.
So what's the better approach?
A much better first call sounds like this. "Hi, I saw you started the approval process with us. Are you trying to get approved first, or did you already have a specific vehicle in mind?"
Oh, that is brilliant. It lowers the pressure immediately.
Yes. It acknowledges the huge action they just took without treating them like a file on a conveyor belt.
Right. It gives them permission to say, look, my credit isn't great. I just need to know what I can get.
Exactly. It invites the customer to explain their situation. And that leads to the next critical fix, which is vehicle strategy. Credit-first buyers are not always attached to a specific car. They are usually very realistic. They want to know what they actually qualify for first.
I can see how that makes salespeople uncomfortable, though. They prefer a lead that says, I want the blue sedan, stock number 1, 2, 3, 4. But the dealership's job is to bridge that gap between the approval structure and realistic inventory. You can't just push the most expensive truck they clicked on. You have to match their actual income, their limited down payment, and the bank's requirements to a vehicle that actually makes financial sense.
Spot on. Which means the dealership also has to ban terrible follow-up scripts. There is perhaps no worse follow-up line in all of sales than calling a customer 3 days later and asking, "Are you still interested?"
Oh, I despise that line. Are you still interested?
Yeah.
It puts all the conversational work back on the customer. It forces them to justify why they haven't bought yet.
And the customer didn't submit their social security number because they were just mildly curious. They are interested. So instead of asking that lazy question, the salesperson should guide them.
What should they ask instead?
Say something like, were you mainly trying to see what you qualify for, or were you hoping to keep your monthly payment around a certain number? You don't chase them, you guide them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Another major fix involves overhauling those CRM notes. Stop writing useless things like customer submitted credit app. The notes need context for whoever touches that file next. For example, writing customer engaged with Spanish language ITIN ad.
Let's clarify what an ITIN is really quick, because that's important context. It stands for Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. It's what someone uses to pay taxes and secure loans in the U.S. if they don't have a standard Social Security number.
Perfect. So if a salesperson sees that in the notes, they know exactly what documentation they're going to need, and they can prepare for that specific conversation. Or maybe the note says, customer came through a payment relief campaign. That context completely changes how the salesperson handles the follow-up. It makes the customer feel understood from the very first second of the call.
It transforms a generic transactional phone call into a highly tailored, empathetic conversation.
So what does this all mean? Let me ask you this. If a dealership implements these changes, better scripts, better CRM workflows, real vehicle matching, empathetic follow-up, how do they realistically shift their internal metrics? Because right now, the industry is overwhelmingly hyper-focused on measuring immediate, same-day car sales. If an application doesn't close today, managers consider it trash.
That is a critical point to address. Measuring a credit application purely by immediate, same-day sold units is incredibly short-sighted. Yes, some applications won't close right away.
Right.
They might need a co-buyer or more money down, or maybe they need a few months of active credit repair, but that does not mean they are worthless leads.
Because they are still a human being who is going to need a car eventually.
Exactly. These applications reveal actual market demand. They identify your future buyers. They feed long-term nurture campaigns.
Yeah.
The goal here isn't to wave a magic wand and somehow approve every single application today, regardless of credit. The goal is to build a system that extracts every possible opportunity from the intent signals you receive. That is the difference between bleeding lead waste and executing a long-term, highly profitable finance strategy.
It really puts it all into perspective. To summarize for you listening, the core takeaway from our exploration today is this: the credit application is not the problem. Dealership readiness is the problem. A generic click on a website just says, I looked. But a credit application says, I might be ready if you can actually help me. If businesses continue to ignore that, they aren't just missing a quick sale, they are handing their most valuable, high-intent customers directly to competitors who actually know how to listen and guide them.
And if we step back, this extends far beyond just buying a car.
I was just thinking that. Whether you work in software sales, whether you are in real estate marketing, or you're just a consumer trying to navigate the modern world, understanding how companies mismanage these high-intent signals helps you see the hidden inefficiencies in almost any business you interact with. It completely changes how you look at customer service and digital workflows.
This raises an important question to leave you with. If multi-million-dollar businesses are this completely blind to the ultimate flashing neon buying signal right in front of them, what other subtle signals of customer loyalty or frustration or distress are they completely ignoring in their day-to-day operations?
It really makes you wonder, how many missed connections, how many massive opportunities are just sitting quietly in your own unread workflows, waiting for someone to finally pay attention to the radar? Something for you to think about. Until next time, thanks for diving deep with us.